Om Agyanatimirandasya Dinanjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmalitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Abhishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guruho Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavangsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunatatmitang Tang Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Arjuna Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitangscha He Krishna Karana Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Brindavaneshware Rishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Rama Rama Hare Hare. So tonight we are reading the 9.1 from the Bhagavad Gita as it is by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, actually as revealed to us by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. Bhagavad Gita, of course, is Vyasadev's compilation. Okay. So we are in chapter 9, text 1. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha. And we do word for word first? All right, we'll do the word for word first. Huh? Well, not the translation, just the sloka. Huh? Okay. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Idam Tu Te Guya Tamang Pravakshami Anasuyave Jnanam Vijnana Sahitang Yaj Yakpa Mokshase Asuvat Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Idam Tute Guyatamang Pravakshyami Anusuyave Jnanam Vijnana Sahitang Yadgyatya Mokshase Asuvat Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Idam Te Tu Guyatamang Pravakshyami Anasuyave Jnanam Vijnana Sahitang Yadgyatva Mokshase Asubat Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Idam Tute Guyatamang Pravakshyam yanava suyave Jnanam vijnana sahitam Yadgyatva mokshase asubat. Right. Sri Bhagavan Vatsa Udvantu te guyataman Pravakshyamyana suyave Jnanam vijnanam sahitam Yatnatva mokshase havat. Any Matajis want to have a go at that? Can you read it from back there? Sri Bhagavan Vatsa. Sri Bhagavan Vacha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Idam, this, tu, but, te, unto, you, Guyocharam, the most confidential, Pravakshyami, I am speaking, Anasuyave, to the non-envious, Jnanam, Vijnana, realized knowledge, Sahitam, with, Yat, which, Yatva, knowing, Mokshase, you will be released, Asubat, from this miserable material existence. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, My dear Arjuna, because you are never envious of me, I shall impart to you this most confidential knowledge and realization, knowing which you shall be relieved of the miseries of material existence. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, My dear Arjuna, because you are never envious of me, I shall impart to you this most confidential knowledge and realization, knowing which you shall be relieved of the miseries of material existence. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. As a devotee hears more and more about the Supreme Lord, he becomes enlightened. This hearing process is recommended in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Quote, the messages of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are full of potencies, and these potencies can be realized if topics regarding the Supreme Godhead are discussed among devotees. This cannot be achieved by the association of mental speculators or academic scholars, for it is realized knowledge. The devotees are constantly engaged in the Supreme Lord's service. The Lord understands the mentality and sincerity of a particular living entity who is engaged in Krishna consciousness and gives him the intelligence to understand the science of Krishna in the association of devotees. Discussion of Krishna is very potent, and if a fortunate person has such association and tries to assimilate the knowledge, then he will surely make advancement towards spiritual realization. Lord Krishna, in order to encourage Arjuna to higher and higher elevation in his potent service, describes in this 9th chapter matters more confidential than any he has already disclosed. The very beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, the 1st chapter, is more or less an introduction to the rest of the book. And in the 2nd and 3rd chapters, the spiritual knowledge described is called confidential. Topics discussed in the 7th and 8th chapters are specifically related to devotional service. And because they bring enlightenment in Krishna consciousness, they are called more confidential. But the matters which are described in the 9th chapter deal with unalloyed pure devotion. Therefore, this is called the most confidential. One who is situated in the most confidential knowledge of Krishna is naturally transcendental. He therefore has no material pangs, although he is in the material world. And in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu it is said that although one who has a sincere desire to render loving service to the Supreme Lord is situated in the conditional state of material existence, he is to be considered liberated. Similarly, we shall find in the Bhagavad Gita, 10th chapter, that anyone who is engaged in that way is a liberated person. Now, this first verse has specific significance. The word idam jnanam, this knowledge, refers to pure devotional service, which consists of 9 different activities: hearing, chanting, remembering, serving, worshiping, praying, obeying, maintaining friendship, and surrendering everything. By the practice of these 9 elements of devotional service, one is elevated to spiritual consciousness, Krishna consciousness. When one's heart is thus cleared of material contamination, one can understand this science of Krishna. Simply to understand that a living entity is not material, is not significant. That may be the beginning of spiritual realization, but one should recognize the difference between activities of the body and the spiritual activities of one who understands that he is not the body. In the 7th chapter, we have already discussed the opulent potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his different energies, the inferior and superior natures, and all this material manifestation. Now in chapter 9, the glories of the Lord will be delineated. The Sanskrit word anasuyave in this verse is also very significant. Generally, the commentators, even if they are highly scholarly, are all envious of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even the more erudite scholars write on Bhagavad Gita very inaccurately because they are envious of Krishna. Their commentaries are useless. The commentaries given by devotees of the Lord are bona fide. No one can explain Bhagavad Gita or give perfect knowledge of Krishna if he is envious. One who criticizes the character of Krishna without knowing him is a fool. Such commentaries should be very carefully avoided. For one who understands that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the pure and transcendental personality, these chapters will be very beneficial. So Srila Prabhupada is very clear on this point, on two unique points, particularly the way the first shloka starts with Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. I was listening to a lecture that Prabhupada did. It was a 40-minute lecture. And the first 20 minutes, he talked about Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. But this is really important to understand, especially for our guests and anyone who's listening to this remotely, that Vyasadeva made a statement. He made it strictly unique that he did not say Sri Krishna Bhagavan. He said Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. And Prabhupada explains that's because there are many Bhagavans. Lord Shiva is sometimes called Bhagavan. Lord Brahma is sometimes called Bhagavan. Many other demigods are sometimes called. Narada Muni is called Bhagavan. And even on a mundane level, sometimes not a Jiva Shakti, but are called Bhagavan in rare cases. So Prabhupada says that Vyasadeva wanted to distinguish specifically that this is not one of those secondary Bhagavans, but this is the Bhagavan. 100% Bhagavan, not 64%, 78%, Lord Shiva 98%. 100% original Bhagavan. Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. Krishna is the original personality of Godhead from whom everything emanates. All the demigods, all the incarnations, all the energies, they all originate from Krishna. So Prabhupada wants us to really focus on that concept that Krishna is the ultimate authority. So when he says something, and that means every page on the Bhagavad Gita, everywhere it says Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, these are not just philosophical statements. These are instructions from the Supreme Creator, from the Creator of everything, from the real Bhagavan. And Prabhupada explains Bhagavan, as you know, Bhaga means opulence, Van means he who has. And there are 6 main opulences that Prabhupada teaches us about: wealth, strength, fame, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation. Well, I don't think anybody can deny the fact that nobody has more wealth than Lord Krishna, especially our Lord Krishna here. But he is a local manifestation of Lord Krishna, right? But Bhagavan Lord Krishna, Bhoktaram Yagatapasam, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. That means every planet. So not only he owns this entire planet, despite the fact that the human beings want to draw imaginary lines, which by the way, you cannot see from outer space. You can see Krishna's lines on Bhumi Dev, the oceans, the land mass, how big they are, right? But you don't see any border, right? You ever seen a border from space? No, it doesn't exist. There's an old saying. It says, a border is, this is the definition of a border. A border separates the imaginary beliefs of one person, one type of people, from the imaginary beliefs of another type of people. Right? There's no actual significance in geography. Like here in India. India used to extend all the way to Iran and Burma, Nepal, Ceylon. It was this massive. And of course, in this time, in Bhagavad Gita time, the whole planet was Bharatvarsh. Never mind just little tiny India. It was like the whole planet was Bharatvarsha. So these imaginary lines do not delineate ownership. We think, this is my country, and on the other side of that line over there, called the border, that's somebody else's country. And those are different people from us over here. That's all incorrect. All the living entities on the planet are all part of Krishna's family. They're all jivas. They all come from Lord Krishna. We're all, not just the humans, but all the species. 8,400,000 species. Jalaja Nava Lakshani, right? 800,000 species in the water. They think that, oh, we found a new species. Every once in a while they'll come up with some idea. Oh, we found a new fish. Or we found a new bug. Yeah, they're not new. They've been here all along, way before we came. So it's erroneous to think that there's some border involved. So in Krishna's creation, there are no borders like that. So when he says that he is the owner of all the planets, he means all the planets in all the universes. And we can't even count the planets in the universe, even with the computer. They can't figure it out. Prabhupada says they try to calculate how long it would take to fly to the other side of just this one universe, and they come up with 40,000 years. Of course, everything the scientists talk about is all speculation. It's not based on any Vigyan. They talk about Gyan and Vigyan, not based on any real knowledge. So these opulences, nobody can compare to the opulence that Krishna has. Even just in his one pastime. You take any one pastime of Lord Krishna, and his opulences are displayed instantly from the second he makes his appearance. He appears in such beautiful opulence. He even departs in an opulent way. And everything about Krishna's pastimes cannot be exceeded by anyone, even Kuvera or Lord Indra or Lord Brahma. Nobody can compare with the opulence of Lord Krishna, right? And then, of course, so there's wealth, strength. Well, come on, Krishna was just a little boy and he could lift a giant Govardhan hill with one little finger, so who can do? So scientists, they don't believe that. And the reason the scientists don't believe what is written in the Vedas is usually because they're atheists and they can't accept an authority as deep and historic as the Vedas. But sometimes, like Srup Damodar Maharaj was able to convince some scientists, because what happens is when they try to prove that there is no God, there is no Krishna, then they slowly come to the conclusion that, well, wait a minute, there's something here. There's something within each one of us. There's something within this planet, the universe, the creation, that we can't quite figure out, and we can't really put a name on it. So they call it the God particle, which is pretty good. That's not so bad. But some of them actually take it further, and as you know, with Srup Damodar's Bhaktivedanta Institute, they utilize Krishna consciousness to prove to scientists that what they're talking about, at best, is gyan, just knowledge, but not even realized knowledge, just jnana. And Prabhupada says when the scientists are doing something, they have to experiment. So there's a lot of speculation involved. So they experiment, they make an observation, they come to a conclusion, and that may stand for some time. But then another scientist will make other experiments, come to a different conclusion, so that the previous conclusion is null and void. It's not followed anymore, because now we have a new plan. Krishna's creation is not like that. When Krishna creates, it remains perfect, and it stays that way until he decides to unwind it, until that particular pastime is over, and he unwinds that particular pastime. But everything about Krishna's creation is always perfect. So we're talking about the strength. So, and then wealth, strength, and fame. Well, no one is more famous than Lord Krishna, especially in India. You see his name everywhere. It's just astonishing, right? But I think people have begun to recognize, because of Srila Prabhupada's preaching and his mission that he has established all over India. Now and more Indian-bodied people are recognizing the value of your heritage, the value of the Vedas. They're not stories. They're not comic books. They're not imagination. They're all real. They're nitya lila. And they are eternal pastimes that are sometimes manifest here and sometimes not. But they are going on somewhere on a planet in some universe somewhere. That's what nitya lila means. It doesn't mean that it's sometimes here and then it's not there. Krishna's lila, all of them, are going on somewhere, some planet, in the creation, until he decides to wind it up. But it's always going on. So these are not stories that we read to our kids at bedtime and forget about it, you know. These are realities that we need to make very strong impression in everyone. That everything that says is in the Bhagavad Gita is true. Every word in Srila Prabhupada's purports are true. In the Bhagavatam and the Gita, it's all true. And it doesn't need any further examination. So we're past the jnana stage. Now it's vigyan, simply by sitting here and listening to Krishna's words and Srila Prabhupada's words becomes vigyan. Because now we have realized the message, aham brahmasmi, I'm not this body. Well, what am I? Gopi Bhartur Padakamalayur Das Das and Das. Oh, I'm actually the servant of Lord Krishna. Well, in that case, I should serve Lord Krishna instead of serving my senses. Everybody is a servant of something or someone. I don't care what position they have in the world, even Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Trump, or President Trump. They have this power. And it's pretty unique, because Srila Prabhupada mentioned that when someone achieves a particular power that's quite lofty, it's unprecedented, and he is able to influence the thinking and the judgment of millions of people, it's not by accident. No one can get that powerful without Krishna's sanction. So he has a plan. Krishna always has a plan. And his plan slowly becomes revealed. Well, we think it's slow, because our lifespan down here is like 100 years is a few moments in Brahmaloka. It's nothing. Well, it's like, let's see, when he stole the calves, he was gone for a moment, right? When Lord Rama stole the cows, he stole all the calves and put them in the cowherd boys, put them in the cave, went to walk away, and said, "Oh, wait a minute, no, maybe that's not such a good idea." So one moment, he realized, "Oh, maybe that's not right." Turned around, but by that time, 1 year had passed, and then Krishna had that wonderful pastime by expanding himself into all the cowherd men and cowherd boys and cows and so on. But for Lord Brahma, it was just a moment. He just had a lapse of memory and went silly and put them all away. And wait, no, I have to take that rock away. So the time frame is quite different. So this is an opulence. This is one of Krishna's great opulence, and his fame. All his pastimes make him famous. There's so unlimited numbers of pastimes that add to Krishna's fame and name, right? So this, what's my name? Even, what was it? Where were we? Wealth? No. What was the third one? Wealth, strength, fame, knowledge. Oh, well. Knowledge, that goes without saying. All knowledge comes from Lord Krishna, not Lord Brahma, right? Lord Krishna plays his flute, and that sound enters the heart of Lord Brahma, who appeared on the lotus flower of Lord Vishnu, but he had no idea what to do. So, what do I do? And so the sound of Lord Krishna's flute imparted that knowledge to Lord Brahma. So all the knowledge everywhere in the universe comes from Lord Krishna. So nobody has more knowledge than him. And of course, beauty, right? Did I mention beauty already? Yes. No one is more beautiful than Lord Krishna. And knowledge and renunciation, right? When Lord Krishna renounces his intimate association with devotees, they become overwhelmed with separation. But he's okay. He's detached. He'll go along. Like when he left Dwarka to go back to Vrindavan to visit family in Kurukshetra, the queens in Dwarka were shattered, devastated. But Krishna wasn't devastated, even though he had 6,108 beautiful wives. He was detached. Just detached. So when we talk about Bhagavan, yeah, that's who we mean. We mean Lord Krishna, who has more wealth, strength, fame, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation than anyone else in the world. No one else is comparable. So that's why in the beginning of this chapter in particular, Prabhupada said that's why Srila Vyasadeva chose not to say Krishna says or Krishna Bhagavan says, but Sri Bhagavan says. And Sri Bhagavan means Lord Krishna and no one else, and no one is equal to or greater than. Asama Urdhva, right? Asama. No one is greater than him, and no one is equal to him. All right. So, the other thing what Prabhupada talked about here was interesting. The other thing that really stands out in this particular purport is the association of devotees. This association is Srila Prabhupada's gift to the world. Because without the association of devotees, it's impossible to make any spiritual advancement. we really must value each other's association and encourage outsiders to come and join. And it will open a whole new world for new people, but especially for us to associate with each other. You know, I had the great opportunity to spend some time in the Brahmacharya ashram last night. You know, it was really nice to. When I joined, there was no other ashram. There only was the Brahmacharya ashram. Jai SriSriRadhaRasbihariTemple Jai. So this sadhu sangha is the most important. So this sadhu sangha is something that we should share with everyone, and you do that. I noticed the Sankirtan bus was back. Huh? Are some of you from the Sankirtan bus? So that's like, I was so happy to see that. I was like, fantastic. That, okay, if you can't come to the mandir and see Krishna, you take Krishna to them. This is so merciful. It's just absolutely astonishing, and I'm sure you all get great satisfaction from doing that, and so does Srila Prabhupada. So keep that going. That's amazing. And, right, Jai. I never heard anybody blow the conch shell so long. It's quite astonishing. Okay. In his purport, Srila Prabhupada also says, Jai SriSriRadhaRasbihariTemple Gaur Chandra ki Jai, Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada says, now this first verse has specific significance. And this word, devotional service, consists of 9 different activities: hearing, chanting, remembering, serving, worshiping, praying, obeying, maintaining friendship, and surrendering everything. So, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmani Vedanam. So, Shravanam and Kirtanam. Srila Prabhupada explains that the most important one, Shravanam. And Krishna was very kind. He designed us with 2 ears and 1 mouth. That means we should hear twice as much as we speak. Something to remember. So this Shravanam Kirtanam, Prabhupada explains that one can achieve perfection in this life and become fully Krishna conscious and go back to Godhead, which is no small feat. It's not a cheap trick, that's for sure. And if we're very lucky, we can do it in one life. Prabhupada says we can do it in 1 minute, but that requires some incredible fortitude, concentration, and the mercy of the Guru and the mercy of Lord Krishna. So, but there are examples in our history of devotees who have achieved liberation from all of these different processes. Yeah, I'm sure you're all quite aware of that, but for those who are not. So Shravanam Kirtanam, hearing and chanting, was Parikshit Maharaj and Shukadev Goswami. So Parikshit Maharaj achieved liberation by hearing, and Shukadev Goswami achieved liberation by speaking, right? And then Shravanam Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. Vishnu Smaranam is always remembering Krishna. Always, 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 always. No reason to not think of Krishna. Day and night. And when you get to the point in your devotional career when you start dreaming about Krishna, All right, now you're getting somewhere. That's really nice. Or dreaming about the spiritual master? Yeah, that's pretty cool. Then you know you're making some good advancement. So Vishnu Smaranam, example of someone who gained perfection is Prahlad Maharaj. So Prahlad Maharaj was, as we know from the Lord Nrsimhadev pastime, Prahlad Maharaj was tormented in so many ways by his wicked father. And not for a second did he ever forget Lord Krishna. He always remembered Lord Krishna. So he attained liberation from remembering, right? Vishnu Smaranam. And of course, Padasevanam was liberation achieved there by Lakshmi Devi. Lakshmi Devi was always serving Krishna's lotus feet. And then Archanam. Archanam is worshipping, right? And Prithu Maharaj was a great wealthy king. He had vast land and fortunes, and he used everything that he had in the service of Lord Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada is a perfect modern day example of that. In the beginning, of course, we all know he only started out with so many rupees, but by Krishna's arrangement and Srila Bhakti Siddhanta's and Bhaktivinoda Thakur's wishes, that vast wealth of 108 temples, book publishing companies, incense companies, was first slowly, but then quickly bestowed upon him. But only devotees like Srila Prabhupada who are so detached from that, because he never ever considered anything as his. Everything was always Krishna's. And you all know about the incredible battle that Srila Prabhupada had to finalize this particular property. And this was, I don't know if any of you have ever had a chance, because I know you're always engaged in so much seva, but if you ever get a chance to read Giriraj Maharaj's book, that will explain all the history of how this came to be. It's almost 800 pages. So there was a lot of, my wife and I were reading it, and there were things that Maharaj reveals in the book about Juhu that we didn't even know, and we were living here, and we didn't know these different things that were going on. Mainly because we, like you, were busy, engaging in our devotional service and not really having much to do about management. That was someone else's great fortune. But we got the chance to serve their lordships some years ago, and it's nice to be back and to see them again. That's for sure. And then, so after Archanam is Vandanam. Vandanam is prayers, praying. The process of praying to the Lord is another way of it becoming liberated from this material bondage and regaining your spiritual identity and going back to Godhead. And that was epitomized by Akrura Prabhu. When he left, and where did he went from Mathura on his way back to Vrindavan to bring Lord Krishna, and he simply saw the footprints in the sand, Lord Krishna's footprints in the sand, which of course would have all the emblems from the bottom of his feet imprinted in the sand. And when he saw that, he just fell down in ecstasy and enunciated all these incredible prayers, which you'll find in the Krishna book and in the Bhagavatam. And so he attained perfection by praying. And then Darshan, of course, we are very fortunate here in Mumbai. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. We are very fortunate here in Mumbai because the example of a living entity who achieved perfection through Darshan is Sri Hanumanji. Haribo. But our particular Hanuman here and Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman are really special. When we were excavating this temple to put in the foundation, we dug down quite far and we found what was left of a well. So it's a big round stone structure way down deep. Actually, it was pretty well right below where the altar is right now. There used to be a big kadamba tree. I mean, a champa. There was a big champa tree right in the middle. And Srila Prabhupada wanted us to bring that tree out without damaging the tree. It was a huge tree. And it was great because we could make, full champa garlands for the Lords just from one tree all the time. It was amazing. But when it came time to dig the foundation, so what they did was they cut around the trunk of the tree for like 20 feet on each side, and a huge big root ball, and then many men dragged it up. I don't know how we ever built this. There was no pumper trucks and no mechanical things. It was just everything by hand. It was amazing. Anyway, so they dragged this big tree up to this, what is now the courtyard. So they had a hole ready just to put the tree in the hole. But from there to there, that tree, the champa tree, the branches are very fragile. So if you hit one the wrong way, the whole big branch will break off. And so that's what happened. Too many branches broke off when we were trying to move it. We replanted it and it lasted for a couple of years, and then it didn't last after that. So. But the hole they kept digging, they kept going down, and they came across this well. The remains, the foundation of a well, and on the bottom was a cornerstone, much like every building that you build. You have a cornerstone laying ceremony, and you have a big hole. You put the Lord Nrsingadev there, right there, Lord Vishnu, some gems, mantras. So we dug it up and washed it off, and there was some writing on it, but none of us understood what it didn't look like Hindi. We didn't know what it was. So we quickly took it up to Srila Prabhupada's room in the old building over there, which is not there now. And we asked him, what does it say? What does it mean? What does it say? And this story was relayed to me by Sarabi Swami, who was in charge of the construction, and he was the one who took it there. And personally asked Srila Prabhupada about that. And he told me directly, like 20 minutes after it happened. And he said, that Srila Prabhupada looked at it, and he got this big smile on his face. And he said, oh, this is the cornerstone for a well from a Hanuman temple from long ago. And that Hanumanji has been waiting here all these years for Lord Ramchandra to appear. Hari Bol, Jai Ram, Jai Hanumanji ki Jai. So Srila Prabhupada and Krishna made the arrangement that Hanumanji could now appear and continue his seva to Lord Ram and Sita Devi and Lakshmanji. So, you guys are really lucky to be living here in this particular temple, you know. There's lots of Sitaram Lakshman temples and Hanuman temples all over the world, but wow, this one is really special. So he is the epitome, the symbol of dasya, seva, right? Gaining perfection from dasyam, from engaging in seva. There was no task that Hanumanji would not do or could not do. There was none. Whatever task that was requested of him by Lord Ram, didn't think, just immediately did it. Immediately did it. And you all know the story about the Ramayana. So his fame, you know, is legendary and will be so forever. Then there's the last two, right? Sakyam, right? That's another way of attaining perfection. Sakyam, making friendships with the Lord, because that's a pretty high level. I mean, not many people can associate directly with the Lord. But of course, Arjuna is the ultimate example of attaining perfection through Sakyam. And then Atmanivedanam is surrendering everything. If you talk to Mr. Adnani or Mr. Birla, or ask him, Prabhu, why don't you give everything to Krishna? Your big apartment, all your businesses, or Mr. Bajaj, or someone like that. Come on, you can surrender that. You can't take it with you. You're getting kind of old. You're going to leave your body. You came into this world with nothing. You're going to leave with nothing. So why not give it to Krishna now, while you're allowed, while you're alive? Yeah. So Bali Maharaj, he did that, of course. You know the story of Bali Maharaj. And so he is the perfect example of Atmanivedanam, surrendering everything to Lord Krishna. And of course, the most recent one is, again, Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada actually, he embodies all of these 9 processes. You don't have to, Srila Prabhupada says, you don't have to try and perfect each one. You can do only 8 or 7, 6, 5, even 1. If we can just focus on one thing that you feel the most strongly about, whether it's Shravanam, hearing, Kirtanam, chanting. There are some serious Kirtaniyas in this temple. You have some really amazing kirtans going on here. So you develop that more and more. So the more the kirtaniyas focus on that seva, the more outside people are attracted, because it's so sweet. It's just so amazing. I forgot where I was going to tell you, but okay. There was something else really interesting Prabhupada talked about here. Yes, the scholars. So many people, Prabhupada in the beginning, in the 60s, late 60s, he would tell us that there were over 600 already versions of Bhagavad Gita. But now I think there are probably over 1,000. So many people are commenting on Bhagavad Gita. And he says here in this purport that even the most erudite scholars write on Bhagavad Gita inaccurately, because they are envious of Krishna and their commentaries are useless. And the commentaries given by devotees are bona fide, and that no one can explain the Bhagavad Gita or give perfect knowledge of Krishna if he is envious. So that's why that that word is in there in that sloka. Where did that go? Anasuyave, right? Anasuyave. So anyone who is envious of Krishna, even if they just think that he's a fictional character and they're envious of the fictional character, they will never, ever be able to understand Krishna, and they will never be able to surrender to Krishna, simply because of envy. And I hate to remind us all, but that's how we got here. Somehow or other we became a little envious. So there is no envy in Vaikuntha. There is no envy in Krishna Loka. So if we want to be envious and if we want to enjoy the material energy, you have to come down here. You can't do that in Krishna life. Vaikuntha. Vaikuntha means anxiety less. There's no anxiety there. So I'll end there unless anybody has any questions. Over the conch shell. We all should make a special attempt to go and have darshan of Sitaram, Lakshman, and Hanuman. Of course, we're also attracted to SriSriRadhaRasbihari and Gaura Nitai. But I have a very special spot for these Sitaram deities. And I think we should all try and encourage ourselves to develop that attachment to these special deities. And then we try to be equal, of course, be attentive to worshiping all the deities the same. But everyone has a particular sentiment, one way or another. There's millions of Ram Bhaktas around the world, millions. And they will all benefit. It's just so wonderful. So Srila Prabhupada installed. These are the first Sitaram deities in ISKCON. You probably all know that. And I have a special rasa with these deities because I was their first pujari. So it was a great honor to do that. But at the same time, I lost the opportunity to directly serve Radharasbihari because new people came in, new pujaris, better, more experienced pujaris came in, and they're still here. Narottam, Prabhu, Narottam, and Vishvadevi. They're from another planet, I think. If there's a planet for pujaris, they came from that planet. I don't know. All right, Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki jai. Shri Shri Radharasbihari ki Lalita Vishaka ki jai. Shri Shri Gaura Nitai ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. For Sitaram. Huh? I know that, was it you? The first, yeah, the first two.
Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Padakamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavangscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathannitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vijeta Hare Krishna 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 Hare